This is the Speak Easy podcast where we go behind the scenes and talk about what it means to be the successfully paid speaker or author. I am your host, Alfie Pelzer, the voice coach, professional speaker, and founder of the World Voice League, a virtual network of female speakers coming together to impact social change. Now, guys, when it comes to clutter, as a mom, I can tell you about clutter. As a mom of multiples, I can tell you about clutter because we can tend to hold on to some things that we don't necessarily need to hold on to. I can guarantee you that I can go right now and probably pull out a picture that one of my kids did in like first grade. But that's as a mom, that's the memory part. But then there's some other things that we kind of hold on to that we don't necessarily need. And that's why I'm super excited about our guest today. So our guest today is Miss Kim. Hello, Kim.
Hello. Hello. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have you. And so, man, okay. Releasing the clutter. We are going to hit it on a couple different angles today, guys, because we're going to talk about it in your business, with you being the speaker and the author. We're going to talk about it in your home. Yeah, we're going to touch on that little nerve. But we're also going to talk about some other things as well when it comes to just how that clutter comes about and then how we can definitely knock it out and be able to clear some things out. But first and foremost, Kim, let them know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Sure. I'm Kim Eagles, and like you said, I've been in business since 2005 as a trained professional organizer. But I've done a lot of work with, over the years, very, very quickly I learned that there's a lot of mental capacity that has to do with that outer clutter, kind of reflects that inner clutter. So I really specialize in helping people see how they're thinking about it as well. I love what I do. I've worked with all kinds of different people, whether it's in the business, whether it's your mind frame, whether it's, home, it's all related. So I'm very excited to be here today. My business has been booming since Marie Kondo has decided that clutter was no longer a thing. So it's been really interesting to see how these conversations are now getting more and more out there. It's easier to talk about. Everybody's not hiding in their home and shutting their doors and pretending it's not them. So I find that this right now, it's the time to really start moving forward through it.
And, I love that's how we're going to start is, the moving forward part of it starts with knowing exactly where you are. And so we have this thing where it's not that bad, right? We look around and we go, it's not that bad. It could be worse, right? So what do you say to that person who right now you need to get through to them to say, okay, look at it from a different angle so that way it is a little bit worse than what you thought.
Right. I think the biggest thing, and I preach this a lot, the biggest thing is everybody has a different threshold of what they can deal with and what they can't. So, I am not a minimalist in any way, shape, or form. There's stuff in my house. There's people that live in my house. So there's, shoes at the back door. There's coats hanging up. So there's really a different level for everybody. I always say, if you walk into your space, so whether it's your office, whether it's your home, if you walk into that space and go, okay, let's get to work, or I'm home, and you feel good about it, then maybe it's not so bad. If you're walking in to a space and you're going, oh my God, look at all the stuff that needs to be done, or you're walking into your office and it's just chaos and you can't find things, billing doesn't get out, so invoices don't happen because your paperwork's all over the place. When it starts to affect you and your business and your home life, if you can't get out of the door in the morning without a kid crying, then it's affecting your life. And that's where I really try to tell people, pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to how you're feeling, how they're feeling, how things are flowing. And when there's that gap and you need to kind of look at the stuff, then you'll know it. but it's paying attention. The very first step is just like observe, be an observer and kind of look at it. And for some people, a messy desk, they may be a piler. They just need, maybe they have organized piles, and that's okay. I've given people permission to have some piles, but if you have pile over pile over pile and it takes you forever to find things, then it's affecting your quality of work, your productivity, how you get things done.
That makes so much sense. So when we think about it from the speaker and the author, industry, listen, there's clutter in our industry that we kind of try to hide. And this was one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have Kim on today, because one of the things we do, especially coming into the industry within the first 5 years, is our clutter is we want to kind of get as much as we can, and we kind of want to, get all of the webinars, get all of the books. We want to get everything. And in doing that, we cause a clutter, but it's not necessarily one everybody can see because it'll be on our phone or it'll be on our laptop. So talk about that part for a little bit.
Yeah, so it's noise, right? It becomes noise. I know from experience, I've been just as guilty. I've been in business a long time, but I am an avid learner. And when you first start as a business, especially if you're a speaker, I find especially if you're an author or a speaker, you're always researching. You're always wanting to learn more. You're always wanting to learn and grow. So you go out and you buy courses, and then you produce courses because you're creative and you're doing this and this. What happens is you just get this, there's so much noise, there's so much to listen to that it's overwhelming. And what happens is you don't end up getting anything done properly or fully or completely. You might be a great starter, but you can't finish because all of a sudden there's another squirrel over here I need to look at, or another this. So it's really, really important to take some time to, one, breathe. I say that all the time. It's like, don't forget to breathe. Right? You just got to breathe through it and really look at what is it that you want? What is it that you need to learn? That what are the gaps? Where are you at? What kind? I say take an inventory, and that works for pretty much any clutter, whether it's mental clutter, computer clutter, or physical clutter in your home. Taking that inventory. If you've ever watched any of the organizing shows out there, they always do the sort. So really dump it out of your head, organize it, and if it's paperwork, then organize it, and really look at what you have that's in front of you and categorize it based on what it is. Maybe it's you have this big pile of courses you're taking, maybe you have a big pile of research that you're doing for books. How many books do you have on the go? How many are you trying to write at the same time? And really try to organize that by sorting it out, and it really helps. If it's mental stuff, just ideas and things that are going in your head, do a brain dump, write it down, and just don't worry about the categories at first. Just write, just start writing all the stuff that you have ideas. And then you can start looking at, okay, what goes together? What looks like it needs to be together? What do I think is the same thing? So trying to get that organized is first and foremost doing that inventory of the stuff that you have, and then it allows you to visually see, wow, I'm doing a lot of courses at one time, or wow, I have a lot of irons in the fire as I'm doing, I'm trying to do an online course, and I'm doing this webinar, and I'm trying to write this book, and nothing's getting done because it's too much. So that multitasking sometimes gets us it slows us down.
Yeah, you just hit on another one, that multitasking, thinking that I can multitask and get 3 things done at once, and
no.
Just no. It doesn't work. Let's just be honest, it doesn't work because we end up not giving.
Proven from there are studies out there that have done it that have shown you that multitasking doesn't work. It takes you longer to do one whole task than if you have 3 tasks. If you look at the map, you have three tasks, and it takes you 5 days to do each of these tasks. If you do, 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's by the time it's like 10 days before you get 1 done. But if you do 1, take 5 days, get it done. Now you're down to 2 tasks, right? Do the second task, spend 5 days, finish that. So it really does make a big difference to just focus. It's huge. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn for a long time. And it really affected my business. It affected the speaking engagements I got. It affected, how productive I was and the things that when I was trying to do too many things, I wasn't doing any of them well.
Wow. When you try to do too many things, then you end up not doing any of them well. And when it comes to speaking, I can guarantee you that you always have somebody watching. We always talk about how a confused buyer doesn't buy. It's the same thing for if you're a speaker, if you're an author. A confused buyer will not buy. So if I don't know what it is you speak on, then I can't, bring you in as a speaker, because 1 week you took a course on this and now you want to talk about that. And then 2 weeks later, you took a course on something else. And now that's the new topic of choice. That's not how you establish yourself as an expert in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard you say that before. It's like, pick a topic, right? Pick a topic that you're going to speak on and make that who you are and what people know. And it does make a huge difference. It really does. Like, I've confused my audiences in the past just because physically I do organizing and hands, which is what everybody knows me for. Like, I'm the Clutter Coach around here, and that's what people know. And then I kind of went into this whole stream where I was learning about energy fields and theta healing and all of this stuff. And all of a sudden it was like confusing. And they're like, well, what exactly do you do? I don't quite understand. And so I really took a step back and went, okay, all this stuff I'm learning are tools that I use to help people declutter. And became, very much focused on the fact that I don't even talk about being the super organized person. I talk about getting rid of the crap that you don't need in your life anymore.
And that's the major piece of it.
That's the big piece, right?
That's the biggest piece, is getting rid of it. We talked a little bit before we started today's episode, and I was telling you that, in the beginning, when I was looking at what it is I had around me, when, starting my business, I started business in 2014. I rebranded in 2016, but it wasn't until I rebranded that I really looked around and said, what do I have? Why do I have this? Why do I have that? Why do I have 300, 400 DVDs and we hardly ever sit down to watch a DVD? Why do I have cable if we have Netflix and we sit down and watch Netflix over the cable? Like, why do we have these things? And really started to clear some things out. Now, I think a lot of times people are fearful of the thing that I went through, which is the kids having like a true and utter spaz out, freak out moment. They thought mom is going through some type of midlife crisis and we need to call the people with the hug me jacket because something is really wrong here. Why is she getting rid of the DVDs? But it was something that was, it was just taking up space. Mm-hmm. A lot of us can contend to that. There's a lot of stuff that's taking up space on our phones, on our laptops, in our bookcases, in our homes. And once I got rid of it, they didn't even look for them anymore. So, if they have a DVD option or, something they want to watch, they'll go and purchase the DVD. But us having 10 or 20 DVDs as opposed to us having 300, 400 DVDs is a huge difference.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And it's really a mind shift because the reality is we're emotionally attached to our stuff. Like whether it's physical stuff or our social media, like we're emotionally attached to our things. And when we start to look at doing that purge and we're starting to let go of that stuff, there's an actual emotional reaction to it. And there actually is a physical reaction to it. There was a study done, I do believe it was Yale University, who did a study on the different parts of the brains that get triggered when certain things happen to people. And one of the things they studied was what happened, like what parts of the brain get triggered if you have to let go of something that you either paid a lot of money for or you were emotionally attached to. So it was, a family something. And the part of the brain that's triggered is the same part of the brain that gets triggered if you actually physically hurt yourself. So if you burnt your tongue or, paper cut, or, if you're really emotionally attached, maybe you broke an arm. So, but it really explains why you get that physical, right? That heavy feeling when you're letting go of this stuff, because we really are attached to it. But realizing that everything is energy, and all of these attachments that we have, when you do finally let go, and you probably notice this, when you do finally let go of that stuff, it's like, like it's just this weight gets off of your shoulder. And if you don't let stuff flow out, I always say, think of a stream. If you just kept all of the water that was coming into the stream like a dam, it would overflow and it just becomes too much. You want things to flow. So you want new fresh water coming into your house. You want new things into your new experiences into your space. You need to let go of that stuff that used to serve you in the past. You used to use it. I used to need it. I used to love it. But now it doesn't serve you. So always think of the word now. Does this serve me now? Do I love this now? And do I need it now? And that goes with everything.
I love it. Oh my goodness. That feeling was amazing. And even I have four teenagers. I have 3 girls that share a room. And I went through and I did the mommy thing. We talked about it earlier. I went through and just kind of bagged some things up while they were at school, and tied up the bag and kind of just tossed it. It was stuff that I knew needed to go, but they had not let go of yet. So I also made them go through and clean off the top of their armoire. And, they're cleaning everything off. They're cleaning up the top of their dresser and, the top of their closet, the top shelf. And I'm like, great. And then I come into the room. I have creatives, so there's always something in their room. But I come into the room and my oldest daughter is sitting on top of the armoire reading.
All right.
And I said, so
what's up with that?
What's up with that? Where did that come from? And she said, well, it's clear up here now, and I don't really have to, if they see me sitting here, then they know that I'm reading, so they're not going to bother me. And I'm like, oh, okay. If that works.
I was going to say, who are you to argue?
I guess I said I can't argue with that one. But it was so interesting that it wasn't until, it wasn't even a thought for her to use it in that way, even though it's not a normal way that you use an arm. As a mom of creatives, listen,
that's all about the creative. My daughter would find any nook and cranny if she just was wanting to hide from people to read.
They find uses for everything, but it never would have been available to her if we had not have taken that time to go ahead and clear it out. So just think about that in your industry, all our listeners and viewers in your industry. If you don't clear out the space, you never know what is supposed to fit into that space.
Yeah, there's no room, right? There's no room for creativity. There's no room for growth. There's no room for to expand your horizons and to really fulfill whatever your destiny is, if you're always bogged down with all of this weight. And I say that, look at your agenda and do the same thing. Like, what are you spending your time on? What are the key important things? Sort it out, and you have to realize time management and time organizing in that. And this is where it gets a lot of entrepreneurs. And I see speakers have because you're traveling, possibly, or, there's a lot of downtime that you try to fill up with all this stuff, but it doesn't necessarily get you more speaking gigs. It doesn't get you, to grow. That if you really look at your agenda and think it's a mathematical equation, you have 168 hours a week. Write down, I dare people to do this. I said, right now, when you have a few minutes, sit down and brain dump all of the things that you think you can do this week, like all of the tasks, and include, having a life too. So if it's stuff you want to do at home, And when you do that, I said, okay, like go and put a real number. So how long does it actually take you to go out for supper with your friends, if that's on your list? How long does it really take you if you're going to sit down and send out some email feelers and introductions to people that may want to have you speak? How long does it really take you to do that from the point that you sit down to the point that you get up? If you're speaking and you already have engagements, how long does it really, like you might have a 2-hour engagement or a 1-hour engagement, but it takes you 2 hours to get there. It takes you 2 hours before you get back. That's all part of your 168 hours. And then really look at what's on your agenda and what maybe could be let go of, what you could either do stuff, you can delete stuff so it doesn't get done, which happens a lot of the time. We just don't have a life, or we don't go out with our friends, or we don't, spend time with our family like we'd like to. You could delay it, put it off for later, or you could delegate it. And delegating is really one of the keys, is how do you get somebody to do that? And I find with a lot of people, it's sometimes you can't delegate necessarily you can't delegate your speaking, you can't delegate certain things, but you know what, you can delegate having somebody come in and clean your toilets, like that. And that's part of your team. And I think that's an important, if you have a bunch of kids, especially moms, and I know this was a challenge for me, and a lot of, it's like, we have a tendency to take everything on our shoulders. Like it's our responsibility to make sure the house is clean. It's our responsibility to make sure supper's cooked. It's our responsibility to make, it's the way our brain works. But I find it really important that if we really want to show our kids how to be successful, it's like we teach them some of these skills. So it's part of their life as well to clean up after themselves, to do their own laundry, to do, and that takes off stuff off of our to-do list. And that, so the delegating can really help when you get to a certain point of like, okay, I have all this stuff and I'm just not getting it done. But streamlining what you're doing as well. Like look at how often you're taking courses. How many courses do you really need? How long are you spending on social media? I have a friend who, I laugh. I was talking to him, and I was talking about, I get really overwhelmed sometimes when I get on social media, and I get distracted because I'm like, cruising and looking what everybody else does. And he goes, oh, Kim, this is how I do it. He goes, I get in, I do a drive-by, and I get out. So when he's posting for his group, and he's a coaching, he's a coaching guy. And he calls it a drive-by. He goes, I get in, I post, I get out. And he goes, I can't go anywhere else or I'm doomed for an hour. Mm-hmm. So it's, those little things that you have to just streamline and just say, no, I don't, maybe I have a half an hour at this time to go in and play, but I don't have 2 hours to do that. And I don't have a half an hour every hour to go in, because those are the distractions that are starting to really affect how much stuff we get done.
Exactly. It's interesting. You hit on a couple different things, and I never even looked at it when it came to having my kids learn how to do laundry, and something that I did within my home that I started telling other parents about it, and they were like, I like that idea, was each of my children have a night that they have kitchen. Mm-hmm. And when you have kitchen, you cook dinner. And they had to, I think it was age 10 was when I started allowing them to do that, and to be able to, they picked what it is that they were going to make, let me know what ingredients they needed. They're doing a little bit more now because they're all teenagers, and they can, go ahead and look up recipes and all of those different things. And that's what, they would do. And other parents would look at me and go, wait, what? They do what? Yeah.
I got the same thing. You make your kids do what? I'm like, my kids have been doing their lawn. Like, my kids are adults now. They're 21 and 24, and they don't live. But they've been doing their own laundry since they were 10. Like, it's like they were perfectly capable of pressing the buttons on the machine. It's not like they're washing exactly by hand. And in our house with the cooking, when they started cooking, the rule was if you cooked supper, you didn't have to do dishes. So whoever cooks doesn't do dishes and everybody else has to do the dishes. So my kids learned how to cook because they hated doing dishes.
I like that.
But to me, like I remember, because I had friends that would say, like, you make your kids do what? And I'm like, my job as a parent, maybe this is off topic, but my job as a parent is to teach my kids to live without me, because I don't want them to live with me forever. And part of that is, how do you do laundry? How do you cook? How do you clean your dishes? How do you set a table? How do you keep a house clean? That's a basic life skill that everybody needs to learn. I'm not going to do it for them forever. I didn't really do it a whole lot when they were young.
Definitely not. I mean, and I would hear horror stories of parents saying that their kids came home from college to do laundry. Why? They have washers and dryers there. Why did you travel with dirty clothes? I can't.
My son did because he was cheap, but he still did his laundry when he came home. But he would come home with a big basket of laundry and throw it in the washing machine. He didn't fold anything though. He would, and never did. He was like, washer, dryer, back in the basket. That's all I need.
It makes sense. So I definitely love it. And again, it goes into just once you declutter things and once you start going through things, you have to have a system or a process. And so, once you start getting that system and that process in place, it makes everything run a little smoother. Now, we have our studio audience listening in and watching, and I had to laugh, and I had to say this one from Michael. Michael said, every time I hear that fact about multitasking, makes me feel good as a man. He said, I'm just saying, I am allowed a shameless plug. Yes, Michael, you are allowed a shameless plug. Yes,
guys are, for the most part, guys are super good at like not multitasking. And I'll tell you the reason. This is funny. And this was life-changing for me and my relationships. If you think of like the different types of men and women brains, if you think of a bowl of spaghetti and all of the little noodles that are around, and if you think of those as all little super highways, that's a woman's brain. So a woman's brain is always connecting with something. They're all intertwined. They're always thinking, even when I'm working, I'm still thinking, what's for supper? Did I get groceries? There's all this list of stuff that's always going on. And if you think of a waffle, that's a man's brain. And men have an amazing ability to be able to go into a box, into a little compartment, and be in that compartment, which is why they can be so very focused, why they're very good at, not multitasking and getting things done. And it explained to me why at the beginning of the day, my husband can leave the house and forget that we exist, right? He went to work mode. And when he was at work, he was in work mode, and that was it. There wasn't all this other to-do stuff. And I think it's important for women and men to understand the difference in those brains and be okay with it, but also for women to understand that it's okay to try to quiet your brain and try to just concentrate on one noodle at a time sometimes, and so that you can get stuff done.
I love that. And it is so that way you can get more stuff done. Yes. And Michael said it, being laser focused, being laser focused does not always mean that I have to have something at every single moment of every single, minute of the day, but it does mean that I am deliberate about what it is that I'm doing. Now, I always ask this question of everyone who comes on the platform, and because of course we know that this journey is not an easy one. So I always ask, has there been any blunders for you? Now, you've been doing this since 2005. Can you look back right now and say, that wasn't a great idea or a great choice?
Oh, there's so many, but definitely. I knew that question was coming. I have had some blunders. When I first started my business, I was pretty good and focused on, decluttering and helping people. And a few years into it, I got caught up in kind of expanding my horizons. We were way ahead of the game when it came to working online and stuff like that. And I started working with a business partner, and I don't want to say it was even a blunder. in hindsight, it's like it was a huge growth opportunity, but we made some poor decisions and things that didn't work. It put both of us near bankruptcy. We threw a whole lot of money into faith, basically, without the right research behind it as to what we were doing and how we were going to get it done and that. And it was way before everybody had their phone and could do video. So we had gone off on a spiel that we were going to do these professional how to organize videos. And we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on filming and producing and all this. Like it was big dreams. And I'm not saying don't have big dreams. But in hindsight, I look at it and I'm like, we probably could have taken a step back and really done one at a time and kind of worked our way up to what we were doing. And we had some great, and when I look at it now, like everybody's doing videos, everybody's doing all this stuff. It would have been so much easier if the technology had been different than it was 10 years ago. But for me, that was I feel like it was a bit of a blunder just because all of a sudden I was doing that and I was trying to do this and I was raising, my kids were smaller 10 years ago. They were 11 and 13. So I found really it was almost like we went too big too fast without really thinking about where that was leading us. And to me, the blunder was we spent a heck of a lot of money we didn't need to spend, and we could have done it in pieces, which I think every entrepreneur out there, especially now with the internet and all of the stuff that's going on, you don't need to spend $10, $20, $30,000 on stuff when you're first starting out. You just need to do a little bit of the work. You just need to take a step. If you don't have that kind of money, like don't put yourself in that big of a debt, because then all of a sudden you have to make it. You have to make that work. And when it doesn't, and that's what happened to us. It didn't go where we wanted it to go, and we ran out of money and we couldn't fix it. We couldn't do anything because it was just too much. So for us, it was that focus of making ourselves just get too thin in what we were doing and just going too fast.
And I think a lot of our studio audience can definitely, and even the replay viewers can definitely, attest to that, simply because it may not have been that big of an investment, but a lot of times we take on things, and it's because it's the new thing, and you never know how it's going to affect your business or your brand. And it's the shiny object syndrome. It's I often, and people have heard me talk about this probably too often, where everybody jumped on the bandwagon for Facebook ads, and took all of these courses for Facebook ads and was paying out all of these thousands of dollars. I've known people that paid out upwards of $10,000 and $15,000 to have somebody do Facebook ads. And I said, well, if you go back to the old school marketing, the original marketing, which is the vacuum cleaner, door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesman, it's the same thing. Yeah. And people were like, no, it's completely different. It's not the same. No, it really is. They would come to your door. If you have a minivan, you have kids, you need a vacuum. You have a
That's right. And you know what? That's part of the key when you say that. It's like, that's market research right there, right? They have a minivan, they have kids, they need a vacuum, right? And I think that was one of the mistakes that we made when we did this big project was we didn't do enough research into who would actually buy this product, like who would actually buy this course online, now they're all over the place, and right. The dime a dozen, but at the time that was unheard of, and we were just so new. But we never actually stopped to think, do we have a market for this? Like, do we do something little and try to sell that first? And if we could sell that, it's like, all right, then we add something to it. And then, so as speakers and authors, it's like, you're going to start with a topic and get good at that topic. And then, if you want to add something else into that, then you grow and you learn and you grow into that stuff. If you have a book, you start with one book. You don't come out into the market with 10, right? So, and the amount of time that it would take you to write 10 books would get you to the point where you're probably broke because you couldn't feed anybody for the last 10 years while you wrote 10 books. So it's, I think that was the biggest lesson for me, was take a step forward, learn your lessons, take the next step forward, learn the lesson. Don't try to run to the finish line.
Yeah, sometimes you do have to, or because what you end up doing is you end up causing more damage. And again, you got to think about it like this as well. When we're in this journey of trying to reach success, anything that we invest our time, money, or energy into now becomes a weight on us. So not to say it in a negative way, but you have to look at it as that, because it's now something that you have to clearly pay attention to. So your family is something you have to pay attention to in business, because if you don't make money in business, you can't feed your family.
Yep.
That's a given. But when you're putting out money for different things and going and attempting to add more things to your business, this is now something else that you have to put time, money, and energy into. And it takes the focus sometimes off of the journey at hand.
And that's one of the sentences that I kind of keep going back to. Is like, keep the main thing the main thing.
Yes, indeed.
That's, I think it's Good to Great in that book. It's like they talk about the hedgehog factor. It's like, keep the main thing the main thing. What is your main thing? What are you really and that's that we talked about that before. That's like, if you have too much stuff around, then people get confused. So if you keep that main thing the main thing and keep focusing on that and moving forward, you'll get there and you'll be successful at it.
I love it. I absolutely love this interview, guys. Again, for those of you that are looking around and going, okay, I need some help in this whole clutter field, then I'm going to allow Kim to give you her information so that way you can get in contact with her. Also, let them know, Kim, where they can find your books.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at kaossolutions.com. That's chaos with a K. So Chaos Kim seems to be my nickname, but so kaossolutions.com is my main website. There's a blog on there, but I will be honest with you, I haven't been great at getting new things on there yet, but there is some good content there, and this is my plan for this quarter to get myself back on the bandwagon of writing. There's links on there as well for the books. The books are all available on amazon.com.ca and wherever else in the world, I guess, in Amazon. So you can get them there as well. So I have 2 books. Release the Clutter is a book about clutter on all levels. So it talks about physical clutter, mental clutter, emotional clutter, spiritual clutter, body clutter, like all the different aspects of clutter in your life. And my newest book is called Solving the Downsizing Dilemma, because I work with a lot of seniors who are downsizing and decluttering. And the PS on that one is PS, your kids don't want your stuff, which is now the motto, because people just don't like the next level. I didn't want my parents' stuff, and my kids certainly don't. Our next generation are not as attached to stuff. So it's really interesting issue that I deal with in that one. And I do have one other, I know for entrepreneurs, and that I do have a course that's about paper organizing. And if you go to comthepaperchaos.com, you can see some information about the course and that. And it's just a 3-part course, 3-part video course that will take you through the process that I use with all my clients to help them organize their paper, which is key when you're in business.
That is absolutely excellent. Simply because, again, that's a process that a lot of us go through, and we don't normally talk about it, which is why, you had to come to the Speakeasy podcast to discuss this topic, because other podcasters are not really talking about this subject when it comes to decluttering and just releasing some things on a whole person spectrum, not just in one area, because we kind of do that whole what our kids do. You tell them clean the bed, and they clean the bed, and everything ends up on the floor. Or you tell them clean the floor, and then everything ends up on the bed. Like, that's what we end up doing. Right.
Daycare and how literally it fascinates me. It's like 2-year-olds can get organized because you just have to go stand at a daycare, and when somebody says, okay, it's time to tidy up, the kids, like, boom, they know where things go, because everything has a place, everything has a home, and everything has a label. Exactly. So 2-year-olds can do it at daycare. We can do it at home and at the office.
That's the way to do it. So guys, you guys know I am super excited to have you guys come in because again, of course, there is no Speak Easy podcast without our listeners. So let us know how this particular episode resonated with you. Leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts. We would love that by going to bit.ly/Speak Easy Podcast Show, all lowercase. And guys, listen, until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.